What's going on, everybody? I want to tell you about one of our sponsors today. That's Raid Shadow Legends. You've been watching this channel long enough. You've heard it's one of the only mobile RPG games that I have played. And I'm not alone. There's over 4 million users that are playing Raid Shadow Legends. It's got over 250 million downloads. It's cool because it has over 850 playable champions. It's got 16 factions to choose from. It's got over 30 bosses to take down. It's got millions and millions of builds that you can work with. So this is a game that you are not going to be bored playing. It's got monthly content updates. It's fully cross-platformed. You can play it with everybody. So do me a favor, click on the link in the description and you will see why this is one of the most downloaded RPGs and why so many people are playing it. Go and give it a shot. What's great is the second you sign up, they give you a starter pack and they give you a champion, Big Elf, Big Ears, Tyrell. He's pretty awesome. Tyrell is highly regarded as one of the big players. He's got a lot of different things that come in, and all raid players talk about how incredible he is with the arsenal that he comes with. When you reach level 25, you get another starter pack. So come join me. You can join the Clan Harloff when you sign up with Raid Shadow Legends. This isn't a silly game. This isn't a stupid game. This is a fun game. This is a game that you guys know me. It takes me a while to, like, oh, am I interested? And I'm interested. I talked about this a while ago, and I'm still talking about it now. So check it out. Its link is in the description. Deadpool and Wolverine. It's the spoiler-heavy episode. Clearly, we pre-recorded this, and I can tell you, it destroyed at the box office. It made so much money at the box office, it overperformed. That's how confident I am. We pre-taped, and I can tell you that the Deadpool movie, Part 3, it crushed it. So we're going to talk about all things spoilers here on the show today. So if you haven't seen the movie already, then what the hell are you doing here? Go to the movies and then come back and watch this, because we're going to spoil the hell out of it. We have so much to talk about. So many things. We'll break it down. It's myself and Winston and Coy. It's the spoiler-heavy episode of Deadpool and Wolverine. Big thing. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Monday episode. Yes, Roka will be back. Hopefully, I think we're going to do a live episode tomorrow. So we're doing a spoiler-heavy episode of Deadpool and Wolverine. It's myself, Coy Jandreau, Winston A. Marshall, and guys, we're getting into the spoiler-heavy episode of this. And it's so funny because I mentioned there's so many things I wanted to talk about when we did like our little preview special, or we were talking on Friday. And I was at the screening in New York, and when I saw it, there were so many jokes that I knew it was going to hit, especially you guys. But there was one in particular, and it was when this big cameo happens with. And again, like I said, we're doing a big spoiler. We'll start with this. We'll start with this one, and we'll get into it as we'll ease our way into it. But Jennifer Garner was rumored to be in the movie, and she clearly is in. She returns as Elektra, and there's this rapid fire pace of jokes going on at this point of all the people that had been lost in this in the void. And at one point, they're like, "Oh, we lost this person. We lost this person. We lost this man, and we lost Daredevil." And Jennifer Garner goes, "That's okay." And the second that happened, I heard Winston from the other side of the coast cracking up. Yeah, just cracking up. And I was absolutely thinking of you guys for sure. But those types of jokes, the inside jokes there. I mean, let's just get into the beginning of this. Coy, let's start with you, man. So you get to this movie. It starts off, and we get Deadpool just beating the piss out of the TVA, and he's at the gravesite of Logan, and they address that right away. People are like, how are they going to address this James Mangold thing? I thought they did that very well with, look, this is part of the multiverse. He's dead. He's not here. And this is him at the grave.
So that was one of the first things I called when they first released the first trailer. He was in the woods, and I was like, those are the woods that Logan's buried, and they're definitely doing that. But a great example of my expectations with knowing too much about Deadpool and my thinking things were going to be this way or that. That was one of the best examples of, oh, that makes sense. I think that's what they're going to do. But the execution of it was so much better than I could have dreamed. I'm so glad I was wrong about some things we'll get into, but I'm so glad that the things I was right about, they over-delivered on. And I think that opening, how do you keep up with the first film's opening montage of the hilarious, the second one's solid, but the first one for me is like, I think the first one, opening credit, will always have a special place in my heart because it was 5 minutes into a movie and I was like, I think this is changing my life, like in real time. And like the jokes about the crew, the cast, all that stuff. And that first one, how do you keep up with that? And the fact that he's fighting using Wolverine's body to take out TVA agents, and that's when the credits comes up. That was such a beautiful set to NSYNC. Like, what a magnificent opening credit. I gotta say, of all the episodes of The Big Thing we've ever done, out of all the episodes of Capes and Cows we've ever done, Friday's show was the hardest for me because I don't know how to talk about this movie without spoilers.
Yeah, that was me.
It's the hardest to edit for me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's the same. I could say the same thing that was rough for me doing my non-spoiler versus spoiler review personally, and us talking on Friday is you can't really talk about this movie without actually talking about the movie. And I think the fact that Ryan Reynolds used a TikTok with Blake being like, Deadpool is married to a millennial, without telling me that he's married to a millennial, and to show Avril Lavigne playing in the van, and for him to do the full bye choreography while killing the TVA is the most peak Deadpool Ryan Reynolds thing I could think of.
Yeah.
And it set the tone so quickly about what this was about to be, and I genuinely appreciate it.
And his Gossip Girl joke was
man.
great too. Like, yeah, he had these little things that he would keep playing. Oh yeah, like the thing is, this is what I really liked about it was, even though I said my criticism was there's a lot of jokes and sometimes it overshadows the heart of it. It never stayed inconsistent, right? It never, and even from the tone that it sets from the very beginning, and even like when they are going to give a joke to somebody else, he's just like, no speaking lines. He says to the one guy, and then the guy was just speaking anyway. And he's like, "Are you improving?" Yeah.
To die, be a day player.
Yeah.
We have to let the extras clear.
Yeah. So all that, and I felt. What did you guys feel about Canadian or Nice Pool?
I personally could see where people wouldn't like him, but I'm bigger a Ryan Reynolds fan than I am almost any other actor comedically. And I think Ryan Reynolds' drama doesn't get enough credit. Like, I made a whole video about Ryan Reynolds movies because as I'm like the biggest Deadpool fan maybe on the planet, but Ryan Reynolds, I'm also like, he's in my top 5 actors. But if I didn't love Ryan Reynolds, I think it would have annoyed me. But instead I was like, oh, I get to see a Van Wilder joke. I get to see the proposal joke. That made me joyous, but I also was aware like it wasn't landing for everyone in the theater.
I was trying to remember what the proposal came from, and it was Nice Pool. Like, I could do the fourth wall thing lightly too.
The proposal.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
I barely laughed.
And I know you're loving the energy already in this spoiler review with myself, Winston, and Coy, and we're gonna keep doing it. Don't worry. But I also wanted to give you tell you about Magic Mind. I've been telling you about Magic Mind. It's the reason why the three of us are still bouncing around and we're having such a good time. It's just focused energy. It really it's what it is, and it tastes delicious. I love Magic Mind. Look again, just to show you. I love the taste of it. It's got like an orange juice almost taste, but it's clean energy. It's got the adaptogens, it's got everything that you need, and it doesn't have the jitters. And that's why I talk about it so much, and it's why I love having them on the show. They've been on for quite a while, and you guys have been trying them too. Very simple. You want to get a discount? You go in the link in the description. You go to magicmind.com/bigthing. You put in that code, big thing. You get yourself a discount. It's worth it. It's one of the best things that I've ever gotten involved with because I just feel focused. So check it out, magicmind.com/bigthing. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. I want to ask you guys, what are your self-care non-negotiables? What is it? You don't skip leg day or therapy day? Well, when your schedule's packed with whether it's kids' activities, big work projects, and more, something I can certainly relate to, it is easy to let your priorities slip. I was just having a conversation about this. I've talked about this many times over. Roxy Schreier, people in my family, have been working with BetterHelp, and if you've been watching my show long enough, Roxy just swears by it. So beneficial of how it works for her schedule. If you've ever thought about trying therapy, you should really give BetterHelp a try because it's online, it's designed to be convenient, it's flexible, and it is suited to your schedule. Simple. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, you switch therapists anytime, there's no additional charge. So never skip a therapy day with BetterHelp. All you got to do, you visit betterhelp.com/bigthing today, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's 10, 10% off by going to BetterHelp, HELP.com/big thing. What I laughed at, not the most, but one of the most, was when he's using him as the shield, and he's just like walking across the thing with him, and he's like, you're gonna beforehand. He's like, you're gonna regenerate. He's like, regenerate, like, and then he still uses him. Yeah, still, and he's still walking. It just shows throughout the whole thing how just Deadpool is just such a jerk off, you know. And it's like he's like the stuff that he does, and even the and we'll jump into so many of these. We're gonna bounce back and forth. We're not gonna go in kind of in sequence here, but like. I thought what was brilliant was when they subtly played as they reveal when they get to the void, and here's Chris Evans. He shows up and he has the hood on, and they subtly play the Avengers theme. This is like, or Captain America, just very, very in the background. But I noticed, I'm like, he looks skinnier. He looks skinnier than he normally does. He's skinnier. And then when they reveal why, it's because he's Johnny Storm. And when he flies up, flame on, I was like, say it. He's going to say it. He's like, flame on. And you're like, oh, that's cool that they did that. Because, yeah, it made sense. It's the Fox universe.
I wrote that joke 8 years ago at Collider, or 7 years ago at Collider. And I said it to Rob Liefeld. And he said, that's exactly what the next Deadpool movie needs to have. If I was in charge, I would greenlight this. And I have it on video with receipts. That whole sequence to a T, scripted. And I'm just proud. I don't want any residuals or anything. I'm just glad we have the same humor, because that was like so funny to me. And I literally have receipts of being like, this is what I'd like the movie to be.
The only thing that was wild to me, and I don't think I ever processed it because I never thought of Pyro and Johnny Storm fighting each other,
is how easily Pyro
to the point where I'm surprised that Pyro didn't, because he controlled flames, didn't just start flinging his body around like he was Magneto. It was just something that all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, Human Torch would lose to Pyro. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, I think my highlight.
But wait, stay there don't jump into the highlight. The reason I brought that up though, Winston, because I want to get your thoughts on that particular thing, is because of the reason I got there is because Deadpool's been such a jerk off. Is even the way he throws, you know, Johnny Storm. Well, we think he throws him to the wolves when he's like, yeah, this is what he said. This is what he said about you to Nova, and then Nova sucks his skin off and just destroys him, and he's just like, oh my god. And Wolverine shows you what Wolverine's a good guy. He's just like, you just let that guy die. What are you doing? Like that's the type of stuff that was working. Like you see the moral, like how you see the difference between the two of them, and you see like where Wolverine is a good dude, and he's just like, what are you doing? You just let that guy like completely get murdered.
Yeah, and that to me, with you speaking of Wolverine being a good dude, a lot of that is even tying to what his story is.
Yeah.
So the idea that he was a horrible dude for so long that the absolute worst happened. And ironically, I think that is the through line with the A and the B story of trying to do this, is that Deadpool obviously has been very self-centered this entire time. And the lesson he's learning from both Vanessa breaking up with him and then his world being erased is that if you don't actually maintain a purpose and start thinking outside of yourself, you're going to lose everything. And that's the lesson he's learning from being around Wolverine. He didn't want to be on the team. He just was more concerned about himself and being drunk, and his whole family was murdered for it. Yeah. And so I think that was why it made it so important that he A, didn't want to mess with Deadpool at first, but B, that he was allowed to do he was following the educated wish, because that is his biggest life's regret to no extent.
Well, and then when we get to the fact that in the beginning of those opening credits, we show, well, this is exactly what's going to happen. Then we bounce to show what he's been up to since then, and there's that scene between him and Happy Hogan where he tries to go in and actually become a member of the Avengers, and he did that through how? He did that through Cable's thing. Is that what he did? Okay, he did that through the watch, and he goes in there and he wants to become a member. And there's this moment where he's like, nah, you know, we'll keep an eye on you, but not quite yet. And it let him down, so he hangs up the suit. He's got the moment with Rob Delaney, who I think has a nice moment in it also later on down the line. But starting, they have this whole moment where he knows he's being watched. He thinks he's being watched. You get to the party, he has the cocaine conversation that we laughed about, which in the trailer, it plays just as well on screen we find out that he's not with Vanessa anymore. And then we get to the TVA stuff. Now, what did you guys think of, what was it, Paradox? Is that his name?
Mr. Paradox, yeah.
Yeah. I thought, and I know he's from Succession, I didn't watch that show. I thought he felt like he was a little funnier than he really was.
Yeah, I can see that 100%, and I think that it was addressed in, since I had just rewatched the first Deadpool. In the opening credits, it's like, some heartthrob, a hot chick, and then like a British villain. It felt like a giant callback to that, because he even said it at one point. Hey, I've got my own British villain I got to deal with right now. I don't have time. I think that that's kind of what it was. And since you were needing to deal with multiversal stuff, you needed a way into TVA, so that was why you went with Mr. Paradox as far as all that goes. It did feel a little more phoned in, and the villain with more depth obviously was Cassandra. Cassandra was thrown away as a child, and so therefore has become pure evil, because of how she was mistreated her entire life. So she's like, fine, I'm going to do me. I found her way more interesting than Mr. Paradox. He was more of a joke to me.
Yeah,
I mean, it was definitely an A plot, B plot villain setup, and I think we were meant to see him as the villain, and then the reveal of Cassandra Nova. I thought Cassandra Nova was excellent. I personally thought as a villain she was fantastic. I didn't really have a lot of strong feelings for or against him. I definitely felt that we see later on in the film, there's like a you're the Juggernaut of the week. Like, they have those other cast members that are stand-ins. Like there's a Psylocke that isn't Olivia Munn. I definitely feel like they wanted Owen Wilson, because in the comics, Mr. Paradox is a variant of Mobius. And I don't know if they named him that to be cheeky to comic fans, but in the comics, he's a variant of Owen Wilson's character in Loki. And I wonder if, much like they couldn't get Vinnie Jones to want to be in all that prosthetics again, if maybe they wrote it for Owen Wilson, because I definitely found like a need for lines to land a little stronger for me.
Sure, but I mean, I would say the reason they probably didn't do that is because that wouldn't line up with Loki, the season 2.
Yeah, what if they wouldn't let him? Like maybe there was sense.
No, if you watch the Loki season 2, because it's the same place that we just saw, and we know that what's the woman who's running it now who falls for Delaney at the end?
15. What's it? B15.
Yeah, B15.
Yeah, so she's running the shop. She would she would know if there was a bad variant of
yeah, that's true. That would have caused way more plot holes. The name, and again, it's just for comic fans, but the name is very specific.
Sure. And I just thought there was the tone when he was on there was like, and he's clearly a really good actor, and I just thought sometimes the direction that he was given there it was a little I don't know, like I like the idea when Deadpool's the one who's the funny one. I like when Deadpool's the one who's telling. I mean, and he clearly has other people who are funny around him, but he's the one who's clearly cracking jokes, making all these things. And it seemed like they were trying to make that guy like really funny every time he was trying to like go back and forth with Deadpool. And I'm like, eh. But nonetheless, this is where I brought this up on Friday, and I want to bring it back. He offers Deadpool this chance to say, you can matter. We're going to let you matter, and look at all this stuff. And he sees a scene with Thor holding him, and Thor's holding him. I think that's going to be in the Avengers movie.
Probably.
I think
I would venture a guess that is definitely going to show up once we get to
Secret Wars, right?
I guess for now we'll call it Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2, since we don't have more information. So I think that'll show up at some point. I think, again, the ultimate lesson that to be learned here is, are you willing to sacrifice everyone and everything that you love and loves you to get everything you ever wanted? Or are you willing to sacrifice yourself to protect those that you love and love you? And I think that was the thing. It was, hey, I'll make you a movie star, more or less, but you have to sell out completely and all of your things are gone forever and you can never talk to them again. A deal with the devil, essentially.
Yeah.
And instead being like, no, you know what? That's not important. They're important. That's what I'm going to do all that. And I that is the part that I think I appreciated out of Mr. Paradox. If anything, the vibe I got, but this character would typically be a little more nefarious. It felt very Mephisto-y, to be honest with you. That is not who this was. I'm not implying that that's what was going on, but again, because it felt very deal of the devil and I'm going to do whatever I can to like reign how I will. Yeah. That is the immediate, like, come on, There you go. You mean Avenger? Like
that's interesting. For me, and that's what's fun about these movies is I read the character completely opposite. I read it as someone who's not good at their job, who is trying to bumblingly do something nefarious because, like, Deadpool even says, like, oh, nobody knows about this. Like, you're lying.
Right.
And he gets away with because he's got this own little private cadre. So to me, it was a guy that was trying to be funny and not succeeding, that was trying to be nefarious, not succeeding. So that made the jokes that didn't land work for me because I was accepting of it. But I did find myself intentionally, like, the laughs felt like I was supposed to be laughing and I didn't, and I was like, maybe that's what this character is. And that's the only time I was like uncertain of a character's
did his jokes
goal in the film.
Did his jokes land in your screening?
Some of them,
okay,
not
they didn't,
a whole lot.
They really didn't land
like
in mine.
He's not the anchor.
No, and that's so Deadpool takes off and he goes on his run. And he said that's how I got back to where he was, and he gets to the grave and whatever it might be, and then he goes recruiting Wolverines, and which was one of the funniest montages ever when you finally see little Hugh Jackman, little Wolverine, and even it was so good, like, to see where he's finally like, and he goes through all these different ones, and then we get my favorite reveal. Well, I have two, but one, the favorite, I think, little cameo is Henry Cavill finally popping into the MCU as Wolverine. And it was like he looked perfect as him. He looked, even he's huge, but he looked perfect as him, Jack. And the shot that they take at DC there, that one of the these, what's he call them, douchebags down the street or jerk offs
down the street.
It's hilarious. They call them that, and then
I also love that Cavill looks like the right proportions of Wolverine because he's so big that he looks like the right width to height, and he's still 6'3". I like that Cavill is so big that it makes the Hugh Jackman proportions look like, oh, a regular sized guy. Hugh Jackman is so huge, jacked, man, and Henry Cavill's like, what if I'm like, what a magnificent beast.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the other thing that I love that they did, it was its own little further meta nod, is Henry has talked about he loves building computers, he loves working on like engines. The fact that he's working on Wolverine's bike while doing that, and you're further nodding to Henry is like, so what have I done in my downtime since these assholes cut me from DC?
And it's Cavilline, so it's Henry Cavill, like that Ryan Reynolds knows Henry Cavill as Wolverine is.
Well, that's what I like when they Henry Cavill didn't have to take a joke at the Warner Brothers stuff. Deadpool did it. It's like when Deadpool's doing the jokes and Deadpool is the one who's kind of showing us behind. That's when it works the best. And he did that. And that's the only one. I thought we were going to see a whole bunch of different Wolverines, and everybody else was Hugh Jackman except him. And he was the only one. And then we see there's different versions of him that he's trying to get. And there's one that I was like, I'm surprised. Who's the poor bastard that was hung up in on the cross?
Oh, that's an iconic comic cover. It's X-Men 151 or 51. It's a magic storyline. It's intense.
Okay, so
and he just backs away. He's like, "Oh, so sorry, you're not the right time."
Yeah, and he leaves like so. There was that, and then when he approaches the one kind of Bond one, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna see Daniel Radcliffe," and it wasn't Daniel Radcliffe. It was Hugh Jackman doing the patch side of it, and I think he spikes him in the head and kills him there. So like that little montage was pretty great. And then you get to that scene what we've seen in the trailers where he recruits this Wolverine. We learn him, and even the bartender going, "You're not welcome here. We don't want you here. You know, you messed." And he says like, "Just give me my drink and I'll get out of here." And that's when Deadpool approaches him. So all that. But talk to me, Coy, about the montage and what you thought of it overall.
Age of Apocalypse, man. I never thought we'd ever see Wolverine Age of Apocalypse, much less Hugh Jackman. That's the one with the stub. It's so iconic. It's so 90s.
Which one was it? What was it? Which part of it?
Missing a hand.
Oh, okay.
And they have that giant brick wall with graffiti they fight in front of.
Yeah.
So that's a very iconic 90s comic. It's an alternate universe Wolverine, and he lost his arm, but he still has the claws come out through the stub. And basically, like, the big feral hair and beard. I never thought we'd see that, especially as Hugh Jackman. So as a comic guy, that was one of those moments where I described this in my review. I consider this the most comic book movie maybe ever filmed in live action. And some of my favorite comic book movies are great adaptations of the characters put into a movie. Winter Soldier is not like reading a comic. It's like looking at a movie with these comic characters. And I would say the same about Iron Man. It doesn't feel like a comic. It feels like a movie with comic characters. Dark Knight feels like a movie with comic characters. This and Spider-Verse and a couple moments of Civil War feel to me like the best I've ever described the feeling of feeling like you're reading a comic. That montage was reading a comic book. The Deadpool core, reading a comic book. There's so many moments in this that are the best version of something that I don't have the verbiage to describe.
Yeah. The montage was great. The Cavill moment, I think, is the one that stuck out the most. I think what I loved about when we got to our Wolverine for this movie was it was the perfect setup. You're not welcome here. You're just thinking it's standard. Oh, this mutant hate type situation. It's like, no. Wolverine is an asshole. Like, he genuinely screwed up here. And I thought that was another kind of secret almost, like as we get to become introduced.
His third
to
act
him.
flashback.
And I will say, but you know what? And even when I'm going through this, 'cause I just saw the movie and I'm trying, like, sometimes you see a movie and it's in your head. What happened there? I remember, like, it's pretty clear, like everything that happens after that. When he gets Wolverine and he brings him back, and they have this fight. He's able to bring him back into the. He's able to bring him back to what's his face from the Succession guy, or Mr. Paradox. And he brings him in and he said, "This Wolverine, you got this one? This is the worst Wolverine that you possibly could have gotten." And then they set up this entire thing where he's got to disappear, and they have the back and forth with the guy who's sitting there. He said, "Who are you calling?" He's like, "You calling your wife?" I'm calling HR. Is your wife working HR? It was like,
and his glee with the butt coming right to his head. Man, there were so many good jokes.
It was a funny movie. And then so they do that, and then they jump, and then this is when he gets zapped into the freaking the void, right here, and he gets zapped into the void. He's like, "Where did he go?" He's like, "You go with him." And then this is where we get to the Johnny Storm thing, and this kind of, and the Mad Max speech that he gives when he's got freaking Sabretooth's head and he's doing the Furiosa line. That's hilarious.
Maybe know how. Okay. How is Sabretooth dead? I need you to explain this to me.
I'm assuming it's a variant that's like bad at his, like, you know what I mean? Like,
bad at regeneration.
It's like Deadpool.
Okay.
Because as soon as he got, I was like, what?
It was supposed
like
to kind
nice
of be Tyler Mane, right? Not live. And so that I actually mentioned that in my X-Men rewatch. I was like, or X2 actually. I was like, I'll believe that Toad died when he got shocked by lightning and thrown off of a building.
Right, but
I'm not believing that Sabretooth got stabbed and thrown off the Statue of Liberty and now he's dead. So maybe that's what it is he just has a weaker.
I think it's like Deadpool, like the nice pool where it's like not good at your job.
And the same thing is, I would have never in a million years imagined that Juggernaut's legs would get cut off. That also doesn't make sense to me, but maybe it's the same thing. Since you didn't have Vinnie Jones, it was like, you take
this week's Juggernaut. Like they literally.
Yeah, so there's that entire setup, and then and I thought Johnny Storm got killed off right away, but because when Pyro caught him and dumped him on his neck, I'm like, oh, how did he survive that? But he survived it, fine. And they're together inside of this cage, moving it forward. And I didn't think Nova was as good as you guys did. I thought she acting performance-wise, yeah, but I thought that she was Xavier's sister. She was pissed off that she was there. She was betrayed, and then she decided to cause havoc at the end. There's really, I don't think she had enough depth. So I think that they wind up in that same thing where the villains were just fine in this movie.
I can understand that. I think the big difference here, and that's why like a Thanos can work in Infinity War, is because Infinity War is a Thanos movie.
Yeah.
It is not an Avengers movie despite the title. And because of that, since we already know all those characters, you're expected to know those characters coming into it. You had time to take and learn about her. I think about him. I don't think there's enough time. Otherwise, this movie might be 3 hours to get more than what we got in that regard. And so I think the two things that they kind of tapped into, they were clearly trying to draw a little bit of a comparison about the idea of being left behind to like Killmonger, it felt like. This idea of like, so you're just going to do your thing and you're just going to look fine. Then I'm going to ruin all of your ish. And the one thing that brought any sort of grace is when Logan obviously has learned his lesson and is giving that whole speech about, the professor and what he would want and how much he would have loved you and all that kind of stuff. That being that one moment to try and find her humanity. And I think she would have been fine if Pyro didn't show up and literally just try and kill her. Be like, oh, well, then fuck all of you.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
you're done.
And then the other thing that's why I say where I thought of Winston when I heard that particular joke with Jennifer Garner, the moment I felt Coy jump out of his chair and start yelling and screaming like a 6-year-old was when they first get to the Void and the Fox Universe thing, and he addresses the camera and he's like, "All right, nerds, suit up, whatever it is, get ready for this one," And Deadpool was like, "You guys been waiting for this one," and he's getting ready to fight. Whatever he says to him was, and I could feel Coy as a young kid lose his mind. Because I also like what Deadpool did there. He's like, okay, look, I've been trying to be nice to this guy, but if he wants to fight. And that fight is fantastic. And when he's shooting him in the side with the guns, and they're going like that. It's a great fight.
Yeah, it's the choreography. There's so many Easter eggs in that fight, by the way. Like, as a comic fan, that fight has actual moves from an Adam Kubert cover. Like, when he has them above his head, that's one of the most iconic Deadpool Wolverine covers. It's got a full-on multi-sequence fight from Rob Liefeld's Uncanny X-Men. No, Wolverine 154 and 155. It also has a dodge, punch from Spider-Man fighting Flash in Spider-Man 1. There are 3 different beats of choreography that are mirroring comics and comic book movies in that incredible film.
Wow.
I thought that it was also very, if you want to talk about just like perfect setup too, I think the fact that the immediate thought most people would have, okay, well, if Wolverine's got adamantium claws, there's no way his katana is going to hold up. For him to go when he got his new outfit from the TVA, even an adamantium katana, like they thought all of that out.
Yeah. Someone wrote this like me. Like, there was a me on set going like, excuse me? Oh, that would actually, like, you felt the comic lore be referenced either exposition or visually.
Please tell me you both noticed that every time he stabs someone with a knife, baby knife.
Oh yeah, that was
back out.
Loved it. Baby knife.
Yeah, I loved the baby knife thing. I thought that was hilarious. He would say that every single thing. He was so proud of himself every time that he would use that. Okay, before we move on to continue talking about Deadpool, I got to let you guys know about some of our wonderful sponsors here. I'm going to tell you about both Cremo Body Wash and Rocket Money. Here you go. I got to tell you about Cremo. That's right, man. So, and I think you guys also have, last week when I was telling you guys about them, I got so many people, I can't even tell you how many people that said, yeah, I use Cremo. I use it so many times. I've been using Cremo, and before you even told me about it, Harloff, I knew it. Because for me, after working in the studio all day, I want to go home and I smell like an alley cat. I want to go home and take a shower and relax. So I love going out on the weekends, but sometimes my friends, they want to visit some really nice places. It means I want to smell nice. My wife and I would go out. I'm like, you don't want to, like I said, she want to go with like a mountain lion who's been sleeping in garbage. She wants to go with someone smelling nice. And that's where Cremo comes in. So you want to elevate and you want to enhance your hygiene routine with Cremo Body Wash. It combines a rich, lathering, and hydrating formula with meticulously balanced, multi-layered fragrances for a superior shower experience. So I used it, we were working in the studio here really late. And so I was like, okay, I used it, felt great right away. So Cremo works with master perfumers to make sure that every body wash scent is blended and refined, and their hard work definitely shows. Every wash that I've tried smells like it's like really high-end cologne. So I really dig it. I like the new bourbon vanilla men's body wash, which I've been using. It's really good. Yeah, it's really, really good. So, it gets me clean and it relaxes me after a long day. So check it out. You got to stop wasting money. That's what I said to myself. And I said it to myself many times over because I've had these apps. I've looked at these apps, and we've all done it. Looking at the app, going, "Oh, that's going to be fun. Oh, yeah, I'll cancel it when it's time." And I forget to. And I got billed for this. I got billed for this. I got billed for this. Like, oh no. Well, Rocket Money is a personal finance app, and it tells you about unwanted subscriptions. It tells you it'll cancel the unwanted subscriptions for you, but it does so much more. It does things, whether it's managing and saying, "Hey, you spent this much money this month as compared to this month. You can do this, this, and this. You have bills coming up. You have all this." Every day I get notifications from Rocket Money. Every day I'm looking, it has helped me organize in ways that I never thought I'd be able to, and I love it. So if you go to rocketmoney.com/thing, it will change your life. You'll love it. Rocket Money is so great. It has over 5 million users and it has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions. It saves members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. So you got to stop wasting money on things that you don't use. You can cancel your unwanted subscription. You go to rocketmoney.com/thing. That's rocketmoney.com/thing. rocketmoney.com/thing. All right. Thank you to both Cremo and to Rocket Money. Use them both. Really love them. If you want to help the show out, you want to get something wonderful for yourself, there you go. Sign up today. Links in the description.
All right. You ain't never lied. I have both of them, and they are fantastic.
They're really good.
Absolutely. The Kremls, that smells incredible, and Rocket Money has really been helping me out with budgeting and whatnot, so I definitely recommend both.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I would also want to move on to where we got to that fight that they had. He's using the baby knife, and then they go to this whole thing that happens where Johnny gets his skin ripped off. They show, and they use that Paul Rudd joke of, "Oh, Paul Rudd finally aged," which is great too. He's got this big skull, big head. Who knows what happened to him? But they find out all these things of all these. You see all the variants and all the different X-Men or the villains that have been there, and you just learn more and more about it. Coy, was this more of a comic book? Tell me any Easter egg stuff in there that I'm missing.
So that Old Man Logan is a very iconic story that they kind of made Logan, the James Mangold movie, with the character, but the desert, like certain elements. The Ant-Man body being used as like a prop is straight from Old Man Logan.
Okay.
The Mad Max stuff is straight Old Man Logan. There's so much of that like implied lore that I love that they turned the End of Time and Loki into kind of like this Old Man Logan universe. I thought it was really funny that there's clearly variants of other actors of Psylocke, Juggernaut. Like the one line of like, "Oh, you're the Juggernaut of the week," really just gave us a lot of. It kind of did what they needed to do with multiversal stuff, carte blanche, because there's so many times you're like, why are there 800 Benedicts, but there's also variants of like, it gave us an excuse for canon. And I love that throughout the movie, they would either go like, here's your multiverse solution, or here's your multiverse problem. Like it really did a great job in that sequence going like, succeed, fail.
Yeah. And I love how they call it out. They said there's so many different times throughout this movie. It's like, let's call it what it is. This phase, it hasn't been good since Endgame. I think he says at one point, he's just like, the multiverse stuff is just not working, guys. Like all that stuff.
When he like a scene we just talked about with Wolverine, where he's like, "Welcome to the MCU. You're joining at a low point."
Yeah. That was.
This movie is so funny.
It was amazing. And speaking of, and so that, that scene, dude. So that I think that he says that. I'm pretty sure he says that during like the big cameo scene, doesn't he? I think he does. I'm not sure.
He says it to Wolverine on the bridge right before they get brought into this world.
Oh,
okay. Because he's saying like, "This is blah blah blah. We're at the TVA."
Okay. Well, so then they go out on the run. They finally they run into Nice Pool. Nice Pool. It's fine for me. There's a couple things, but to me that it felt almost like a different movie at one point of what he was trying to do. But it worked. And then the dog licking his face and all that. The Deadpool. I thought, like, I was curious. My friend who knew nothing about it, hadn't watched anything since Endgame. It hasn't even seen Endgame when I took him. He only saw Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. So I didn't know if he was going to be lost. He loved the movie. But I was wondering how, like, if Dogpool and all that stuff would just kind of go over its head. He's like, what the hell is this? And I think some people would be like, what the hell is this for that? But they get his car, they get Nice Pool's car, they take off, and they wind up going to one of the...
How did they get Honda to sign off? Because like usually in movies you have to say good things about the thing. And I love that they're just trashing Kias and Honda Odysseys.
Yeah. Now it's so true. Does the fight scene in the car? Oh yeah, the fight scene in the car happens between the two of them. They take the car. The fight scene in the car happens because that's where the core of it comes, where you really see what Deadpool wants to do. He's like, I just want purpose here. I want this. And then I love the frustration because we're all feeling it at that point where Logan's just like, shut up. Like, and then they just start brawling and they get into this incredible battle in the car, and this small little thing, like they don't get out and fight outside. They keep fighting in the car, and then they're ultimately rescued by Elektra,
which is by X-23.
By X-23,
excuse me. Excuse me.
My only not only, I have a few, but my biggest quabble with the marketing is that if they had not told me X-23 was in this,
agreed. I said the same thing.
I didn't even watch the last trailer personally. I skipped it, but I saw because of the internet that she was in it, and they set it up as such a reveal in the movie, and I was like, why did you put that
Why?
trailer?
I don't get, because this is the conversation that we had on the show with Roxy and Brett the other day. We talked about this moment. It's like, what's the gain? It's like, you're not at that point. Your tickets already been selling. You already proposed to make a lot of money. It's like we're trying to get more a younger generation in the audience, and you already have people buying tickets. You know, how much more people are you gonna buy? You're gonna get tickets. I don't know what was the. I would love to ask Feige that. Why did you guys put her in the trailer?
So I got two thoughts here. I think that the first is, I understand she's an Acolyte, isn't she?
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
I know that it's not.
She's the best. She's one of the best. She's one of the best parts in the Acolyte.
If I had to guess, if you're trying Disney just as a whole, if you're writing off of the good, there's not a lot of goodwill for Acolyte, but if you said that she was the best element of it, if that's the way that you try and linchpin people back in, let alone the people that maybe aren't paying that much attention, but Logan is their favorite superhero movie ever, and you're like, wait, what's happening? That those last few that you're trying to get, but I love
that show's not popular enough. That's just not popular enough to want to ruin one of your trailers, to ruin one of your reviews.
But that's why I appreciate Feige even saying, I would be very open to one trailer from now on.
I would love that.
I think they need to do that. So keep it to one solid trailer.
Yeah, that's all you need. Just keep replaying that trailer and just show little moments. That was an unnecessary moment. I don't know. I would love to know why that was made, because anyway, she rescues him. One of my favorite scenes in recent Marvel is this whole thing that pops up because it's relevant to what they do and how it's not just okay, Chris Evans shows up and then he dies, which was fun, but this is relevant. They wind up finding Elektra, Blade, and then finally Gambit at Channing Tatum, which that Channing Tatum stuff killed me. It killed me because they completely embraced that he can't do the accent for anything. It was the accent was horrible, and he knows it was horrible. And Ryan Reynolds calls him out on how horrible it was. I never in a million years thought Wesley Snipes would show up in it, because they notoriously hated each other, and he calls that out, which is amazing. When he goes, I don't like you.
Wesley Snipes hates Ryan
Oh,
Reynolds.
right, because of Blade Trinity.
Yes, and
in the movie, he says it and then just stop on Deadpool.
He says, well, he says something. He goes,
it just holds.
No, because he goes, I hate you, and he goes, you always did.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. I forgot.
It was, and I was like,
the sounds I made, I don't know if an animal in nature makes the sounds I made when Wesley Snipes showed up as Blade. Like the Channing Tatum was hooting and hollering, and I never thought I would see this. And Channing Tatum's dialogue was genius, by the way, saying
it's hilarious.
Never existed, all those existential quandaries, but because we never got his movie. But Blade, when he walked in, I thought there was no way in reality I was seeing what I was seeing. I actually doubted my mind.
That was one of the one times that I was glad that I was duped by a report, because there was a report that said oh well, Wesley Snipes definitely not in it. They have who played it was Sticky Fingers played, and then he said that it was probably going to be him because Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds hate each other. There was no world that he would show up. So when he popped up, I was like, it took me a second to realize it was him, because I was like, there's no way. And then Jennifer Garner. I don't know if I
felt like that since Andrew Garfield showed up in
No Way Home. It was so good.
I didn't think I had that feeling.
Yeah, and then that was the problem with the last reveal. I'm going, so there's four of us, and then I knew, well, it's Daphne Keane, because I've seen the trailer, which is stupid of me to watch the trailer, but it's Daphne Keane because it's such an emotional moment, because it's so pivotal to the conversation that she has with Logan of going, you never were the guy until you were. It was such a great moment. He's like, I'm not the guy you think. You never were. You weren't that guy until you needed to be. And it was such a great scene.
It really was, man. It was up there with any advice that Obi-Wan or Yoda ever gave Luke that kicks in at the 11th hour.
Mm-hmm.
And when he all of a sudden realizes he is the sacrifice, it's the Captain America. You're never the sacrifice guy.
Yeah.
You would never do it. And then Tony and his two probably biggest moments in his entire run, both the end of Avengers where he tries to take the nuke out, and then obviously snapping Thanos away. You saw the same wheels turning in Logan's head when that happened.
And but even when they call him out, and when Gambit says to Deadpool, "What'd you do to Johnny?" And he's like, "I didn't do anything to him. He did it for himself." And it's like, and then we all think he's lying. And
until the post credit.
But you have all this conversation that they're having in this moment, because we're just not doing it justice, because we can't say everything that's going on, but everything that Channing Tatum's just mumbling gibberish. It's just it's amazing, and it's just gibberish, and it's like it goes. He calls on his tool that he's got, the 21 Jump Street tools, and that humor that he's very good at, and he bounces back and forth, and he's not a bumbling fool. He can fight.
Oh,
he can fight, and he can fight well.
That was awesome, which was redemption from being a bumbling fool.
Yes, which is
verbally
he was a bumbling fool, but he was just kind of like a sad sack. But he was really good. Like when Wolverine's drinking his whiskey and he fires the car through it. But there's so much more that you could probably do a full episode on that freaking thing, because like you said, with that whole the Daredevil thing. But when they go back to Cassandra's lair, and he's just like, what weapons is this? This is the Punisher's thing. Which Punishers? There's like 5 of them.
And then Blade's like, only one of me, and there only ever will be. I was like,
that was.
But
let Wesley Snipes tweet in the movie.
Yeah, but did you see what Ryan Reynolds did after he said that?
He just made a face, didn't he?
He looked when Wesley Snipes goes, "There's only one Blade, and there ever will be," and Reynolds goes like that. And that's because at that time, when they were shooting that movie, Blade was very much in production and going into production, the movie itself, the new one. So it
had been plagued with enough stuff back and forth that I'm sure that's
I don't know if it has, but either way, it's just, it works either way. It works either.
And there's probably enough alts of that edit where like Ryan played 5 of them, and they're like, all right, what's the newest version of what's happening with Blade?
Also, how long ago were reshoots? Wasn't it only like 4 or 5 months ago?
Who knows? It could have been one of the reshoots. Yeah, but either way, it played very well, and they all. And with that, what's the song choice that they use when they all start walking up to fight on?
It was Jay-Z. It was Jay-Z Swiss Beats. Hold on.
Was it?
It's right
there.
there.
It was T.I. It was T.I. in that series.
It was Bring 'Em Out?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I think you might be
97%.
All right, either way, whatever it was, it played like a wrestling match, and it was amazing.
100%.
And they showed up, and then I was wondering, how are they going to be able to fight them? And then I said to myself, I literally had this thought. I'm like, how are they going to fight all these people? And then my other thought was, who cares? And then it's like they just start fighting, and I'm like, okay. And they have to get to Nova. They get the Juggernaut's helmet because they're able to slice his feet off, basically. And it's just the full on. I mean, and look, I mean, Jennifer Garner was looking great, and so Wesley Snipes at 60 years old, whatever he is, it was, and Daphne Keane is so good. She really is so good, and it just makes me, and I'm not going on the whole thing again, but it just makes me reiterate that she should have been the damn star of the Acolyte. She should have been the one. It should have been her and Saul, because they wasted Daphne Keane, wasted her, and this movie proves that.
Yeah, I think the thing that I appreciated the most about this fight, about Daphne, really about everybody, all of these characters, except for Daphne, but Elektra, Blade, and Gambit, all 3 of them either had some sort of like major like taint on their ability to come forward. So Gambit never existed, and that's what Channing wanted more than anything, but they never got off the ground. Elektra was panned as one of the worst superhero movies of all time, and one of the big complaints that I had having watched it for the first time recently, and I hear a lot of people say the same thing. It's hard to believe that Elektra is genuinely the world's greatest assassin. She kind of reads like the Capital One lady trying to sell you credit cards that happens to have size. And then with Blade, it just went out with horrible fanfare as far as Trinity. Obviously, him and Reynolds not getting along, and then you've done the Mahershala thing and how mad Wesley went. The storyline for all of them, and this is like the D story now, is we get to finish our story.
And that, to me, was all I wanted out of this movie.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day, all this movie gave me was saying goodbye to the Fox universe, because you can play back Gates and Hell's tapes. I got receipts. All I wanted was Fox to get a swan song, and I thought that the heart of Deadpool would allow for a good swan song, because it's not fair to these movies that the reason these movies exist, the reason the MCU exists, is because of Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man. And Blade went out with Trinity, and X-Men went out with New Mutants.
Right.
I was so hoping that, and I'd never expected Elektra to get comeuppance. I was so hoping this exact thing would happen, and that it happened this well is why we started, like, on Friday, last week's show, talking about like Joker versus Deadpool and Wolverine. This is a great example of something that Joker can be the best drama I've ever seen. Joker could be the Citizen Kane of dramatic comic films, but nothing will ever feel as good to me, having waited 20 years for this redemption, to feel the pure nostalgia of my life experience. So that's why I could watch this movie with a critic that just is watching it as a movie, and I can never understand them not loving it, because I will always have 2 decades of buildup. This is like I've lived with blue balls, and I just came so hard, and I'm so happy this happened.
My God.
So hard.
Well, if it wasn't, if this wasn't a Deadpool and Wolverine thing, I probably would cut it, but I'm gonna let it go.
Oh, now you tell me, you motherfucker.
No, this is it's not Capes Cows. It's an R-rated episode.
That's
I know. Well, for today,
we'll cock it all over the can, and I'm so happy.
All right, so we're gonna lose Coy a little early in a little bit. So let's just, Coy, let me ask you this, because Winston and I can finish up. Where does the MCU go? Because if you fast forward through this stuff, right? You've got stuff that happens with Nova. They get back to their universe. All the Deadpools come in. They fight. I mean, that was the only part to me. Was it got a little silly. I assume that was Blake Lively as Lady Deadpool. I would assume that was. There was some fun stuff. They bring in his friend, who easy enough. It's an easy fix. Oh, look at him. Everybody loves him. Great. Okay. And then they have to work together to save everything, right? So Nova winds up eating it. The TVA once again is able to settle. What does this mean over? Because they didn't eliminate the Fox universe completely. They tied it up nicely. They gave it a swan song, as you said. They showed it in the credits. They gave the Green Day song with it. The post-credit scene shows the fact that Johnny Storm did say all that stuff. Where does this go forward for the MCU? How does this play into Captain America? How does this play into the multiverse for the Avengers movies? How does it play in?
I honestly think the next step is Secret War, because I think there's a reason. I mean, scheduling notwithstanding, we didn't get any X-Men in this movie. It was Wolverine. Yeah, in that the Deadpool though. That's Deadpool's Colossus, not even the X-Men's Colossus. Short of Wolverine, pun intended, we only got Hugh Jackman. So I would say the next step is acknowledging this Fox canon. Like, I think it was Earth 10005 or whatever the Earth was. I think we head towards Secret Wars, and then that way you've still got bigger to go. I think that, after Civil War, the only place you could go to make something feel bigger was Infinity War. The only thing you could do after Avengers 1 was Age of Ultron. Escalation is the only way to keep building.
But how do they stop? How do they stop the multiverse? How do they stop it?
Blow it up with Secret Wars. I think Secret Wars is the culmination of phases 1 through 5. And I think it's the culmination of, I think you bring in Sony, you bring in Ghost Rider, you bring in everything. The culmination of everything is Secret War.
Yeah, no, especially if Secret War, most of the time, especially the more recent one, it was meant to get rid of all the auxiliary and merge the Ultimate Universe into the main continuity. So you literally can wipe out all of this. You can wipe it all out and go, we just have our Earth Prime now. Our Earth 616 is it. And you've then brought all the properties together, and you're not 10 Wolverines, 20 Deadpools, 50 Scarlet Witches. It's just, this is the character.
Because the mutant saga starts now, and I think X-Men versus Avengers is a likelihood. As of recording this, we don't know what the whole age panel was. As of you watching this, they might have announced what Avengers 5 is. But I think the lack of X-Men in this movie was really interesting, and I think that Avengers versus X-Men would be a really good way to... It's not quite Secret Wars, right? But it's like huge and bigger than anything we've seen so far. And then even bigger is everything. Like, you literally just unload every character you've ever had, and then you clean it up. And then you've got a new universe, and then phase 1 or phase 7, like depending on what they want to title it, it's like comics. Like, there's too many characters, we got to clean the slate.
All right, Coy, thanks. You want to give them a real quick where they can find you?
Hunt me down at Coy Jandreau. I'm doing tons and tons of Deadpool stuff. I'm going to be doing a full spoiler review, which is probably already up, but I'm also doing a giant Easter egg video that I might have to film after Comic-Con, because literally I'm going to hop on a train. So Easter egg video is going to be including all the stuff I said about the fights and all those things, and diving deeper in. And I am more excited to rewatch this movie than I've been since, I think, Infinity War Endgame. Like, I saw No Way Home 5 times. This might beat that.
All right, beat it.
So yeah, and this was so much fun. I'm so glad, Kristian, you said at one point, like, you remember this whole movie play by play.
Yeah.
That is such a rare thing of, like, it like left a mark. It's so good that we can relive it, and I'm just so excited. This was fun.
All right, Coy, we'll have fun at San Diego, even though it already happened. All right, Winston. So I asked you the same thing I asked Coy, man. What do you think about where this thing can go? Is there anything that we missed out on? Obviously, we covered the thing with Nice Pool. He gets torn apart. Oh, we didn't cover the fact, and I wish we would have had Coy's opinion on this, but Wolverine finally puts the mask on. I thought the mask looked great. I thought it looked pretty scary, pretty creepy, or more intimidating, I should say. Could have come off really lame, but it worked. And I think that you jump back to what Nova did inside of Wolverine's brain, and you could see what she was doing and how that kind of affected like his relationship that he had with the X-Men, and how much the reason why he's wearing the suit in the first place. So anything in there that we missed, and again, yeah, where does this go?
I think we kind of hit on everything. I think the big moment for me in this film, above all else, because I was laughing all throughout it, definitely was Deadpool and Wolverine's final, destroying the machine type moment, just because of what's behind it, what's going through their heads.
Sure.
When they are, making that sacrifice. They're making that ultimate sacrifice to try and make up for lost sins and protect their folks. That really was a big thing for me. As far as where we go, I think you leave the door open to that Fox universe like you did again for Secret Wars, so you can truly put it to bed. So then, Deadpool can pop in at that particular point, because obviously he wanted to stay with his family. So it makes sense that he would go back to his own timeline. I think that's the main thing. You have shown that the variants don't need to be, they can be equally as important, but they don't need to be as big of a deal.
Right.
And what it actually reminded me of, seeing all those Deadpools, that actually felt like a riff on Loki in the first season, when he meets all the other Loki variants, and he meets Crocodile Loki or Alligator Loki and President Loki and all that. I got the same kind of vibe there, and that's what they were trying to nod to. Yeah. So I think that that's all you're really doing. You are fully setting yourself up to open the door and let all of this come back. We might see other variants. So, we didn't say.
Was that necessary though? I mean, it's a fun scene, but was that scene with all, what did that have to do to further the plot though?
I think that the point of that was two things: a fun set piece of the fight.
Right.
I think if we're gonna be in the TVA, if we're gonna talk about variants, if you're only gonna show Dogpool and good pool or nice pool, that's not gonna cut it. You literally were then showing God knows what, El Mariachi, Lady Pool. Mm-hmm. Coy knows even more. I believe that was Deadpool 2099 at one point. I could be wrong about that, but you brought all of that in. If you're gonna do a multiversal TVA thing, you would never have another instance to do that. It would make zero sense to do that in, like, say, Secret Wars. You got to do it right now, and I think it's just that. It's just to give you that moment.
Yeah, I mean, sure. There was some fun moments going on with it, but overall, look, I think that we covered the post-credit scene. As we said, Winston, you get really wasn't even one post-credit scene. The first one was just like a montage to see all the stuff, and they showed everything. I mean, they didn't shy away from any of the bad stuff either. They showed the freaking the other Fantastic Four movie, Michael B. Jordan and Miles Teller and all that. They showed everything, and they were saying basically
Elektra, which
everything.
It's cool to see that Jennifer Garner had fun on set for that movie, because considering how bad that movie was, you just assumed that maybe everybody was miserable in it. But I really appreciated that too, because I mentioned in my spoiler review, I think the thing that people forget, the good, the bad, and the ugly of all this, for the last 24 years, this has been the Fox universe really was a very good thing for us, no matter if the movies were good or bad, and it got us to this point. So to see these crews to genuinely have been enjoying what they were doing, and how we got to this point, I thought was just a beautiful, touching moment. It genuinely was really nice.
All right, so there you go, guys. That's our spoiler-heavy thoughts discussion on Deadpool and Wolverine. I hope you enjoyed the conversation overall. If there's things that we missed, the things that you wanted to talk about, put your comments in there for sure. If you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. I'd like to thank Winston for sticking around. Winston, where can they find you?
You can find me at The Swaggy Blurred on all the platforms, but especially here on YouTube. Again, you can check out my spoiler review, my non-spoiler review. Those are both up at this particular point. If you are wanting to see kind of more, I did all the rewatches of the Fox Marvel universe leading up to this, and some of the things that you got to see in this movie and otherwise. And then obviously, if you follow me over on TikTok and Instagram, I'm putting up other fun stuff, including a lot of sketches and stuff. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you to Winston. Thank you to you guys. Appreciate you being here. And I'm hoping that Roke and I will be back tomorrow on a live episode. We didn't get a chance to do our live episode today, but Thank you once again. Appreciate you. And we'll see you on the flip side. Thank you to our sponsors. If you want to help out the show, make sure that you get yourself one of those sponsors. We only get stuff we think you guys are going to dig. All right. We'll see you on the flip side. Bye.